All right, guys, what kind of damage is happening to your chickens due to stress? That's tonight's talk. Welcome back. My name is Christopher.
I'm Angela.
And we are the Dinosaur Omelette people. Hi, welcome in, guys. If it's your first time here, do me a huge and hit the sub. This is an academic channel to a degree. We spend a lot of time teaching. I mean, we've got a ton of good information. If you guys are new here, definitely check out our old lives. They're more long format, and I strongly encourage you, if you have questions, drop them in the box down below in the question box.
Do we want to test sound, make sure sound is good?
I think sound is working fine. I checked my microphone prior. It's not all good. Okay. So thanks for everybody dropping in. Yeah, so tonight we're going to be talking about the effects of stress on your chickens, and I'm not going to be just telling you it's bad for chickens, because everybody knows that. I'm going to go a little deeper into that, and it's going to make more sense. And it's going to give you a greater understanding as to what's happening with the critters. Homestead, that's Katie. What's up, hon? Thanks for dropping in.
Oh, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, so the stress is an issue, and we're going to talk about it at a deeper physiological level or bio level, so you guys understand, but I'm not going to use brainiac words. It's just going to be, that's not really my big wheelhouse. I mean, I'm interested in that, but that's not my area. Hey, Kelly. Oh, speaking of Kelly, you guys, check out Kelly's channel, and also I have a copy on my channel, on her Feather Connection channel. We were invited to do a really cool talk about defining yourself as a small business in a homestead market, because a lot of you guys out there in homestead land are trying to sell product, and that might be new, which is great because that's a new opportunity to learn something. So we did a long talk about that, especially if you don't have any background in that. You can develop an understanding on defining yourself, which is very, very important. That's go watch that video.
Yeah,
this one's about
Kelly's
stress.
Channel.
So a little bit about us for new people in here. We always do this so we have some kind of relation, so you understand who we are. Would you like to do the quick version?
Quick version is we value education, encouraging you guys and anyone who's interested in learning new skills, bettering your quality of life, especially. Through learning like homesteading and self-sufficiency and getting your hands in the dirt and doing things with your family and just bettering yourself overall and your health.
Yes, yeah, that's our philosophy. But who we are, we're a small hatchery down here in southern Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Specialize in jumbo Coturnix quail, strictly the jumbo wild or farrow, because we really focus on self-sufficiency as food program. And Angela has a wonderful silky breeding program, as well as we have developed our own. Oh, give me that big giant sign I made. We make our own feed. That's right. Yeah, I made this. I'm an illustrator, so I drew chickens for our feed design, and yeah, we make our own, produce our own feed, which we put a ton of education into, which if you guys are curious about poultry nutrition, that's a really fascinating subject.
It's a quality feed that we feed to all of our birds, our chickens and ducks and laying birds and our breeding silkies. So yeah, we value health.
Where's the eggs? No eggs, damn it.
Oh.
I wanted to show you guys eggs. Oh, last thing I always mention, if you're, hi Verna, hey hon. I just started watching that video. It sounds super, sounds good.
Super helpful
Katie,
so far.
Yeah, if it's something you're interested in, Katie, send me a message too if you have any questions. Yeah, last thing before we start, I always like to tell you guys, check out the description. I have really cool free educational material, and I write it so it's easy to read. And this is about quail. This is one of them. And I write it so it's easy to read and something you do with the family. And there's a lot of good stuff in there for the kids. That is, I do a lot of illustration. There's a lot of illustration stuff in there as well to be appealing for the family so the kids aren't put off. A lot of farm stuff is usually technical and it's bland and it's not approachable. So I really want to be approachable. Okay, cool. That was 4 minutes of yapping. I don't know if this is going to be extremely long, like usually our hour-ish or so, but there's a good amount of information to discuss.
You got the volume on that?
Yeah, I turned up my voice so I can test it.
Yeah.
We shall begin. So I always have, if you see me looking down, I take notes so I can have structure so I don't lose my thought. And I want to present this in a linear fashion so it's easier to understand. And plus my brain kind of goes everywhere and helps me follow along. So I'm writing about stress and the immune system in poultry and why minimizing stress isn't just something we're doing to keep the animal happy, but it's going to produce its biological optimal functioning condition. My philosophy, and I really challenge anybody on this issue, is a system is what we're tending to, not components. Like we want, how do I put this so it makes more sense? Your bird, your own body, it's many little systems working all together, like the way you sleep, your eating, your exercise, your sunlight, your relationships, the stress or lack thereof. They all contribute to your overall human health. And conversely, or similarly, in chickens and any organism, their environment and the optimal functioning of their environment in their body and in their surroundings is going to contribute to their overall health. So stress and stress mitigation is but only one of these factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that's understandable. So again, like your nutrition is going to be another one of those systems, right? The environment they're living in, their coop, is contributing to their health. But we're talking about stress today. So if you're ever sick, I have these little intros. If you've ever been sick after a stressful time and you've been going through a lot of stuff and you're feeling like you're getting cold and the shivers coming in, there's a reason for this. Your immune system is beginning to suppress, and we're going to explain why that's happening. So chronic stress in us and in our birds is detrimental. Chronic stress. Intermittent stress, on the other hand, is beneficial for us and beneficial for the birds. What do I mean? So like exercise is a form of stress. You're stressing your body, you're stressing your system. Many of the same physiological things are happening when you're engaged in exercise as would be happening in other forms of stress. Vasoconstriction, your blood's moving, your heart's pumping, energy's being used in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening? Your body's adapting to it, it strengthens, but then the stress decreases and you go back to baseline. That's good, that's natural. Same with mental stress. When it's intermittent mental stress, like you're studying for something and you have whatever you're doing, a deadline, and you get your studying done and you've learned it, and then it dissipates and you go back to baseline. Well, you're creating new neural pathways. That's healthy. Chronic stress, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Any you can mumble an input if you have something to say.
Well, I mean, we're going to get into the why that is.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope that's a good intro to what we're talking about. So what's happening with stress? Do you want to talk about the hormones, or I can go into that?
Okay, that's fine. Good.
All right. In your chicken. So your chicken's having a nice, happy life, but you notice they're acting a little peculiar. All right. You're seeing, and this is something that I'm going to bring up later. Signs of, how do you know if your chicken's like suffering from a stress? And there's multiple stressors. We talk about them all the time. Predators, okay, crowding in their coop. What else causes the stress for these birds?
Malnutrition.
Okay, yeah, malnutrition.
If there's a temperament issue, a bully within the flock.
Inconsistency.
Yeah, and
inconsistency in like your behaviors around them when you feed them.
If they just have nothing to do in their space, perhaps even the space is a little overcrowded. Just
loud noises.
Comfort.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that can contribute stress to these chickens.
Mm-hmm. If it's continual too, then chronic.
So how do you know if your chicken's stressed? Is there a chicken stress test? You take blood tests. I'll talk about this later. No, I mean you can, but we're not going to be taking blood tests because usually your chicken will start to subtly, not very, predominantly, but subtly start showing signs that there may be a stressor. And of course, the more you take care of your animals, the better you're going to understand whether it's stress, it's nutrition, it's this, it's that, it's a pathogen. All these different things have very similar symptoms, right?
Yeah, and the subtle symptoms or behavioral changes or production and such are things that you will have to be observant about and take note and perhaps watch over time. That's why we encourage people to to look over your birds,
Spend
pretty
time with them.
often, like once a day, just so you can be able to know what they look like when they're healthy and happy versus when something's off. Because the reason why the stressors, physical, showing in a physical way from the chicken isn't so obvious is because they're prey animals and they don't want to make themselves weak, appear weak when they're a prey animal.
That was a big thing I was going to be talking about later.
Oh,
That's okay. That's okay. Yes, that's true though. Yeah, the animal will hide its stress because all animals, they don't want to look weak, because then what does that mean? It makes the wolf says, "Ooh, that looks delicious, and I don't have to work hard to get it."
Yeah, and even in the hierarchy flock system, some birds can be pretty just fidget with the hierarchy often. It just depends on personalities. And if they're sensing a weakness, in one of the birds, they might pick on that one a little bit more to bump it down and keep it down on the
Life in the streets.
hierarchy level. Yeah.
It's tough
So that's
out
a
there.
stressor.
All right. Yes. All right. Moving on. Understanding hormones and their role in the body, because this is important. Because what are hormones? Anybody know out there? You've all heard of them. And I forgot to mention the whole thing. I'm not a. What am I not?
Oh,
I'm not a veterinarian or a biologist or whatever. I'm not a professional here. I'm just giving friendly, fun entertainment. But let me move on. But if you know your animals, you'll be able to tell when something is off, said Verna. Yeah, correct. Yeah, we always tell people, spend time with your critters, pet them, get to know them. And we did a video on that. Chickens aren't just some turnkey thing. You just get them and walk away. You really need to be involved with the animals if you want them to function well.
And it could be even to the point of feather sheen, how vibrant the feathers themselves look.
As an indicator of stress.
Yeah. Perhaps even molting. Maybe have one that's taking an awfully long time to molt. Maybe something's going on internally and she needs a boost in some way. But anyway.
All right. Understanding hormones and the role of the body. What are hormones? Hormones are messenger, usually proteins or cholesterol-based steroids in the bloodstream. And these are released by, everybody heard of the endocrine system, right? What is that? Well, it's a series of glands throughout our body, and they produce our hormones. And these hormones, they go in and they tell cells what to do. And the one we're talking about in chickens in particular, in this context, it's going to make sense in a second. It's called corticosterone. Corticosterone is the hormone in chickens, which is very similar to what we call cortisol in the humans, right? We secrete this cortisol when we're under stress, and the chickens secrete this corticosterone. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah. So they're having this stress response. And what is the body doing? And I'm going a little more in depth with this. It's going to be like, why are you talking about so much on this? Because it's going to make sense. What's the body doing? Why are these messenger signals going out? What is stress? What is a stress response? Stress response is a survival response. And stress response is supposed to be for an immediate survival, not long-term. Again, not chronic stress. We get stressed and chickens get, and animals have stress responses as a natural adaptation to avoid croaking out. They're not going to get eaten. Maybe there's a fire. Maybe there's a flood coming, whatever. So they have a stress response. There's vasoconstriction. So the extremities start dialing back the blood flow. They may have adrenaline pumping in their body now too if they're getting spooked up. You're having this stress response. It allows them to function under threat. But we are not supposed to be under threat constantly.
No.
This is, I don't want to get eaten by the fox, so I'm going to scuttle away. That's good because it was quick, and then it went away, and they go back to baseline. But if it's a chronic stressor and you have this hormone coursing through their body, or if you have a bad job and you got a hard life at home and you're going through a lot of stuff and you have chronic cortisol, this is causing really bad health implications. And one of the first things to go, hence the title, I think, of this video, is the immune system. The immune system. Why is this?
It's very taxing to maintain.
Yeah, why is this? Why are they getting rid of the immune system first? And what's actually happening? The immune system's still functioning, but it's getting dialed back. It happens to us too. Why is this? Our stress response. Our stress response is for immediate survival. that's taxing on our body and taxing on the chicken's body. When I say our body, and the reason I keep saying us is because fundamentally the reaction is very the same, very similar, fundamentally speaking, in the human and the chicken critter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening? We, or the chicken, are trying to survive under chronic stress, or I was talking about the immune system. So why is the immune system getting dialed back? That is a long-term survival tool. It's subtle, it's in the background, it's always functioning. We're always, producing white blood cells, these lymphocytes, and these other wonderful T cells, and we're producing all these anti-disease fighters in our body. Same with chicken.
Mm-hmm.
For every single day. And in fact, this immune system is always on because the birds are always exposed to pathogens. We talk about that frequently. And the pathogens come into the body and they get introduced and their immune system recognizes them and they develop their immunity. You know what that reminds me of? Do you ship your chicken feed? Well, I'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I already forgot to tell what I was talking about. I get sidetracked. Oh, I was talking about the immune system. Yeah, so the immune system is getting dialed back because it takes a lot of energy to produce all these extra immune cells when that energy is being allocated for their stress response or what is supposed to be a short-term evasion or survival mechanism.
That stress hormone and that you're
Okay,
saying.
now does that make sense? I hope it does. So what's happening under that stress? When the bird is under chronic stress, you got your chicken in the chicken house, it's too cooped up, it's dirty, there's not good feed, they're just stressed out chronically, they begin to deteriorate. They may not show it at first, but their immune system goes down.
Internally, the deterioration begins internally.
Yeah, and that's why we say we always tell people under these stress times, the birds may become more susceptible to illness, and then the illness will begin to snowball effect. And Verna said chronic stress is a killer. I think it's the number one thing in the US, frankly.
Yeah.
Especially now, people are going wacky. So the endocrine system, we talked about corticosterone, so you could be familiar with that term. I should have put these terms down there. And what am I talking about? I discussed that, how chronic cortisone suppresses the immune system. I think we discussed this. Anything else important about?
You can use the analogy that.
No, that's true.
Makes it more
I wrote this.
digestible. Oh.
Yes, it's like pulling workers off a repair crew, and then putting them on constant fire watch when there's nothing actually burning and everything else is starting to fall apart from neglect. That's that immune system. They're pulling away the resources from that immune system to allocate the resource to this high energy chronic stress state.
Yeah, there's a sentence on the other page, and it's like that stress, those constant stressors is like the body is saying danger, danger, continuously over and over, and then the body is not able to rest and stop producing that stress hormone. It just keeps going. So now it's going to start deteriorating internally the system.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over that again real briefly. I don't want to ramble on it, but the chicken will, under stress, doesn't matter if it's chronic stress or an immediate response, they're releasing this corticosterone. This is the hormone, similar to our cortisol, into the bloodstream, and it's telling all these different cells and organs they're doing different things, and the body's functioning in the survival mode, evasion mode, protection mode. I mentioned vasoconstriction. Blood starts coming away from the extremities. That's to keep something from bleeding out. If they succumb to an injury, it'll keep the blood from a wound area, and it keeps the blood around where it needs to be in the chest area. So, they're releasing this hormone, much like and intermittently, it's expected. It's just how we're adapted. We're supposed to have intermittent stress responses. Birds are supposed to have intermittent stress responses. They're designed for that. All these critters are. What's happening, like Verna said, is chronic stress is a killer because it's allocating all the energy there away from the immune system and away from other critical systems. You start having other problems with digestion, the gut microbiome,
The last page here is actually what you're talking about. I don't know if you wanted to be more detailed.
We're going with my last page.
Well, that's just kind of a lot of what you're
That's
going
fine.
over.
I wanted to go into there.
We could go back.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to go into there. But no, I got off my spiel. All right.
Sorry.
Moving on. Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what was happening.
3 and 4, 5 now.
Real world. Oh, this is excellent. So we talk about this all the time. I'll let Angela start yapping. Angela, we discussed chickens when they're stressed. They kind of hide it. They have to. When an animal's injured, ill, or sick, or damaged, their instinct is to hide it because they don't want to
make it obvious to predators that they're sick or ill.
Yeah, even the big animals, on the top of the line in their pack, they're going to get picked on. You know, the wolf.
But yeah, it's most common in the prey animals. Like even rabbits, for example, are really, it's hard to tell when they're in pain. But yeah, the deer and everything know they're going to be removed.
It's fascinating if you guys think about it, because the group of animals that's taking the sick animal, like we have one sick animal and a group of animals. The group of animals does not want that sick animal because it's jeopardizing that group. So they want to kick it out. So he has to hide it from the group and predators.
And the predators in the wild have to eat. So they are targeting, they don't want to be injured.
Hey, Taco.
They don't want to be injured while trying to capture prey. So they will go after the older or
fascinating.
Weaker animals. So that does actually keep the genetic makeup of the prey animals higher, because the best of the best are the ones that are surviving. But anyway, now we're talking about pets that are being protected.
So our chickens are hiding their stress. They're hiding their damage and injuries. So, and it's our responsibility to see if something's going on with our birds. So how can we tell if there's a problem? And remember, we're going to talk about things that aren't just stress. These are symptoms of stress, but they could also be other causes, illnesses, injury, etc.
And ultimately, if there's something wrong, it is a stress. So if there's a nutrient deficiency, the body's being stressed because it's not being able to function properly. So any of those indicators, if you're realizing maybe your animal is sick, well, that's a stress. So so it's good to know, like we mentioned already, what do they look like when they're happy and healthy? That way you can observe subtle shifts and changes in their behavior or visual appearance to know, okay, well, what is the stressor? Is it illness? Is it behavioral? Is it environment? All that stuff.
If I have chickens, would it be advisable for the stress reduction to just buy them a pack of smokes so they can just chill out? And
supposing chicken smokes.
It's a dry joke.
They would not do well with that. No, that would make the body worse.
But people do that. They smoke to bring down the stress because nicotine. It's excellent. Okay. Anyway, it's Coco. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Dumb joke.
So,
real world signs of chronic stress in poultry. So
if you have chicks and juveniles that are growing, they're in their growing stage. Maybe there will be one or a few birds that aren't growing properly. You're noticing maybe their size isn't the same, their growth rate is not the same as their little buddies. That's an indicator that something's up, something's going on.
What could be happening in a brooder that's stressful?
It could be that it's getting bullied or picked on by others. Maybe the brooder's too crowded. Or the space itself, whatever space they're in, is too crowded.
May I segue into something about that? So with some of these smaller chicks, they may be genetically inferior, and it's a natural process that the others are just weeding them out. Does that happen with them?
I think there is,
runt syndrome.
There are. I don't know that they would pick on them specifically because they're smaller, but there are chicks that do have genetic, flaws. Sure. Where they really just don't grow. Their feathers will start growing, but their body just really doesn't grow much at all, and they just stay tiny, tiny, tiny. And that doesn't happen often, but that would be a genetic trait that's not good. But if there's stressors that juveniles are experiencing, pretty much everything we already mentioned, maybe they're not getting the right food, maybe there's competition for food, then that could affect their growth rate if they're under stress. If one or all are under chronic stress. And sometimes they may not be being they may not have the proper food. So sometimes people will be just chickens, have juveniles, and they're like, oh, they just don't seem like they're growing very quickly. They eat and they eat and they eat, but it could be that the protein content isn't high enough, or maybe there's some nutrients missing in that particular feed, and that will affect their growth rate. So their bodies are trying.
That could be a reason for sudden and unexplained deaths.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, for sure. So slow growth rate, poor feathering. If you're seeing,
can I say something about brooder stuff?
Sure.
Oh, other common stressors for brooders. If you guys are raising chicks and haven't done it before, temperature changes all the time. Opening doors, like you have a birds by door, and it's like nice and warm, and then it's cold all of a sudden. And it's happening throughout the day. Loud, intermittent noises. Dog. Maybe the kids running through, spooking them every once in a while. But that would have to be chronic and happening all the time. What was the other one I was going to say? Animals. We did that. I think, okay, whatever. I can't think of the other one.
I'd love to
adopt all the tiny tinies.
They are cute. So sometimes they're growing, but they're not feathering out properly. Their feathers are growing slower. And that could be also a food type thing.
Overcrowding.
And overcrowding could cause them to pick at feathers and be irritable. But also, Kelly had mentioned this before. If they're not getting the right, was it lysine? If they're not getting a certain, their nutrient content isn't proper.
Limiting amino acids, sure.
Then that can cause feather picking because they're trying to compensate.
Yeah, that would be a sign of that. That would not be a stressor. That would be an amino acid deficiency from the lysine and methionine.
Technically is a stressor on the body.
Causing the stress.
Yeah, so now their body's they're trying to figure out how to solve the issue, and now they're causing damage.
Well, let me tell them about that. So the lysine, I believe it's lysine, is the one they use for the production of feathers. And lysine and methionine, a limiting amino acid, is very important in the nutrition of the birds. And when that one amino acid is not sufficiently present, they do what animals do. They try to find it elsewhere. And since feathers are made of lysine, they start eating the feathers or pecking at feathers to get it.
They mentioned running out of food and water. That's definitely a stressor.
Yeah.
Feather picking can be too hot or not enough protein too. Yep. And if they're too crowded, then that could make them hot because they're just too close together, or maybe not enough ventilation. So then that can make them feather pick.
And again, guys, all of this stuff we're talking about, whenever we do these videos, we're not like hammering, this has to be 100%. It's total care. Like you want to have total wellness. Like you want to have an overall quality of care in each aspect of the animal's life. It's living conditions, it's housing, it's food, the reduction of stress. We're not saying anything is a single magic bullet cure or cause, but they all contribute to the overall well-being or lack thereof.
And sometimes people, they think, oh, well, they're just chickens or they're just quail, and they'll be in this setup temporary. Then we'll move them a different setup, but their needs aren't really being met properly with, it could be all the things we just mentioned or something else. And then what's happening? You're getting these animals for different reasons. Some people want them for just pets. A lot of people want them for egg production. And if their body is being taxed, then their production is going to be one of the first things to go, because that's a lot of energy to produce an egg. So the next thing was reduced egg production. If suddenly the egg production drops, that is a big energy maker. They have to use up a lot of energy to produce the egg. So that's an indicator that something's going on internally whether it's some sort of stressor, could be a predator scaring them, and now the stress hormone's going up. It could be the food or stress from flock mates, and also increased sickness. Now, behaviors you might see would be a perfectly happy chicken. They would be exploring, pecking, scratching, eating,
That's
drinking.
important.
Moving them is a big stressor too. Yes, that's very true.
That's the one thing, like, so Angela sells hens, and her silkies are laying. And when they move, that's a big stressor. So we have to tell whoever's picking up and adopting a new chicken, they may not be laying for a little while because of the stress of the move.
Yeah.
And even with quail, you guys, a lot of you guys out there have quail. If you're going from one cage to another cage in the environment.
On your same property even.
Yeah. It may screw them up a little bit for a few days.
Yeah.
But they're resilient, so they'll adapt to the environmental change.
Yeah, it's but that's a
chronic.
temporary stressor, so then they'll calm back down and then relax.
Usually a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's like turning it off and trying to reboot an old computer. You're just waiting and waiting.
So some other behavioral indicators would be perhaps one or several. You might notice of the birds isolating, not exploring, not doing what their normal behavior would be, which is pecking and scratching and looking for food and socializing and moving around. If you see them just stopping, maybe even hunching, they look like they look tired, conserving energy, and maybe they're starting to look dull. You can feel their crop and see that they haven't been eating as much.
I'm thinking of an assessment. So how can I tell? I've noticed my chicken's acting weirdo. So how can I tell? What did you say? Usually a couple of weeks, or even avoiding you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I tell if it's stress causing the problem, or like maybe a predator's coming around? Like
external versus like something.
Well, I'm saying I want to assess. I'm trying to determine if my animal's sick, like they picked up an illness, or what else is going on. Again, go see a veterinarian. I'm not a veterinarian. However, like an assessment like that, what we would do, this is common sense too, is you want to look at the environment they're living in. Is the place dirty? Is the coop clean? Is it enough ventilation? Is there a temperature, airflow issue? Have they been eating? Have they access to food?
Check their crop and see if there's food in there. You can feel it. It's like a lump when they have a lot in there. See if they're drinking.
And they're drinking. And the predator issue is could it be an external? Could it be a stressor like a predator coming around? That's always possible too. But you want to do an assessment. You know your own area, and if it's illness, obviously you want to take them in.
Yeah, common sense, not so common these days. Yeah.
I like to call it the logical progression, or the logical pathway of progression. Like A causes B. It's a causal association. So, A causes B, B causes C. And usually our intuition is right, but if you're using good common sense. But not always. There's a lot of things that happen that aren't quite that intuitive, and it doesn't make sense to us.
So obviously, what you're going to want to do is just, keep a catalog in your mind or write down, like, what are you noticing to distinguish whether it's illness or predator scaring or food not being right.
I just thought of a great stressor.
You're going to want to, look at their manure. What does their manure look like? Because that sometimes that's diet, sometimes illness, depending on what the color is and what's in there. If you're seeing like their earlobes, like chickens, if with silkies, for example, they have blue earlobes, and if they're suddenly not blue anymore, that's usually something's deficient. And then the dullness. So there's different indicators for like a parasite or sickness versus nutrient deficiency versus animal predation.
So as a clinical term, you'd say all kind of stuff.
Yes. So take notes.
I was going to say one stressor I forgot to mention is, let me see the top I said here. I put a camera on the coop to check for external stressors at night or while away. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
It's 100% a good idea. We always recommend that. And that's logically, We should be doing that. You've spent much money on getting a chicken coop, a chicken house, buying chickens, watching them grow, and you're not going to spend the 50 to $100 on a cheap camera?
Oh, and a real quick thing, mites and lice. Sometimes people just don't notice them, but that's depleting them. That's a stressor that's constant, mites and lice.
Yeah.
So you're checking for that too. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. The other stressor I did want to mention, because we deal with it, because Angela sells her pet silkies. Sometimes people want to get, I just want one chicken. Now, what happens when you have one lowly chicken?
They're so social. They're very social creatures, and they become sad, depressed. They might be anxious. They might just be like edgy, like can't relax.
Yeah, the behavior will definitely change.
Yeah, or they'll be, depressed. Like it's not good for them. When they have a buddy, they're always talking. They'll preen each other. They'll eat together. They'll encourage eating. So if one maybe isn't feeling good because of some sort of stressor, you have a buddy, and that one, maybe the one that's stressed isn't eating so well anymore. And if it's all by itself, it's much easier for them to just keep declining and then just perish. But having a buddy eating and talking to them, it encourages the other one to do the same thing, even when they don't feel well.
I'm going to have to throw this out there because it's something I think about. Like, if the general lay person who doesn't experience one-to-one interaction with animals on a regular basis, there's something they don't see. Sometimes you see it with your dog if that's all you have, and you probably will. But there's something people don't see and they don't think about, like about a duck or a chicken. A regular person says, oh, is this a stupid duck or chicken? But when you interact with these animals, you begin to understand they have a deep, intelligence, or a deep, what do you call it? Emotional state. Like they bond and they communicate in a way that is, we can relate to. Like you can understand these animals aren't just a collection of cells walking around, like they're individuals. It's very interesting, and you kind of get to know their own personalities, and you realize they're actually, they're not writing novels or anything, but they're intelligent animals, and they're aware. And they may not process information as we do, like in some kind of cognitive level, but they do process their environment. I don't know how a chicken thinks. I never interviewed one, but they do. It's very interesting. It's just an aside. Like if you guys work with animals, that's why when you're working, if you spend time with them, you begin to understand them very intimately. Even honeybees can recognize their owners, treat them accordingly. I didn't know this.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That'd be something. I'd be like, all right, get in here. It's me. Come on, bees. Give me some money. They don't like that. They like being nice too. They like nice, happy. Yeah. Okay. What else were we talking about? Common stressors in poultry environments. I mean, we talked about quite a bit of that. Anything else I didn't mention? Probably not. Just the loneliness thing that we didn't mention. What can we do for practical management of stress poultry? Well, do the opposite of things that are causing it. If it's overcrowded, keep it less crowded.
If you're handling them rough,
handle them
they
properly.
just think a chicken, there's different information available about how much space they need, whatever the bird or animal is. And it's not for, when you find the proper dimensions and such, sometimes people are really all over the place, but it is for a reason. The space, they don't want to be in this tiny box. If they had the choice, they would be free ranging and exploring your entire property, looking for food and eating pebbles and grasses and dust bathing and going into the sun over in that area. Yeah, that's why I don't like the chicken concentration camps where they live in a box and lay an egg for 6 months or whatever, and then they're dip out for the next day, get turned into chicken feed themselves. It's horrible. Yeah. Anyway, but we raise our own eggs. We eat well, eat healthy. Okay, cool stuff. But what can we do to manage their stress? Social dynamics to monitor the aggressive birds. Yeah.
When we talked, I asked you about that. I was secretly talking to Angela, not in one of these lives, but here at the house, about what do we do with a bully rooster? Is that something that can be changed, or is that just how he is? Or is it the bully hen? Which one did you say is more the bully? The hen or the
The
rooster?
hens, the roosters tend to be bullies to humans if it's a bad rooster.
Okay. Well, I don't mind
The
that.
hens, sometimes there's
That's
some
probably
hens
good.
that are just overly dominant. And if you have a flock where the other hens are, they're not pushovers, and they'll stand for themselves and sometimes they'll challenge, then, there's more strong personalities will do better there. But not with soft-tempered, docile personalities or breeds. They'll get picked on, and then that usually ends up being your favorite chicken because it's a sweetie, and that's just not that's a chronic stress. So yeah, it's important to pick the flock mates with personalities and breeds that meld together and work together. And it's sometimes it's hard for people to emotionally let go of some birds that maybe they raised from chicks, but they end up being a bully and they're really difficult. But you have to do what's best for your flock, your overall flock. I think we got some
Quail experience. The ladies have done much worse to each other than the bachelors.
Yeah.
Some things people don't think of. After everything is okay, enriching their lives makes them happier. Things like toys and treats.
It does. Yeah.
Oh, Kelly said something. I have this. We're using a 2-bit hillbilly studio here via iPhone, and I have an iPad down here. So, Kelly, you said bees really do recognize faces. When I got rid of mine, they kept coming back angry that their hive wasn't there anymore.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh.
I would not like that.
Oh, after your story with them in your hair.
Well, at least you weren't raising rhinoceroses.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But I was going to say something. A change. So animals are like people. They like routine. They're not big fans of like constant change. They like, expecting. It's just their bodies function, with routine and eating food and eating the same
That's
sort
a
of food.
biological universal thing for vertebrates. Does any animal not like an expected routine?
It's a stress. I mean, they can adapt to change, but if it's like...
earthworm may not mind it.
Sometimes people are like, oh, go feed the chickens at this time, and like, oh, let's just go feed them at this time. We got our, we got all this
they
stuff
have a
going on.
circadian rhythm. They have an internal clock. All organisms have an internal clock.
And then also handling. People like to enjoy their birds and hold them and make them calmer.
Just thought of a very good example. I'm sorry. It just popped in my head.
Let me finish. Sometimes we're not gentle enough with handling them. And us humans, it's just we can overpower them because they're small animals and just pick them up. But if you're too rough with them, or maybe you're handling them too often, it's just really startling and stressful for them. So it's important to handle them with care and consideration, hold them in a comfortable way that supports their body and doesn't scare them. And then they'll become more calm with being handled. So that's
precisely. All I was going to say was to give an example as to how animals are conditioned and they expect regularity, is that even your goldfish know when you're going to feed them. When you come to the tank, they're like,
yeah.
And they have an expectation.
Yeah.
That's been trained into them.
There's a comment there.
I guess everyone in the chat and you guys all saw how bad my face held up from that bee sting. So it was super done. Oh. Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah. I swear on my my life, that's a true story. I'm glad to get rid of the bees. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so long-term consequences of stress. Again, we got this corticosterone coursing through the body of these animals because there's always something coming in, or there's a persistent stressor that they're engaged with. Just like with people, if we have cortisol in our body at all times, there are long-term health consequences. We become susceptible to all kinds of illness, injury, longer time to heal. Okay, and then the introduction of diseases which normally we would eliminate. Your white blood cells are going out there going, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. But now they're like, I ain't doing nothing because you're under stress. Does that make sense?
It's funny.
All right. So Yeah, long-term consequences of stress in the bird, poor flock performance. They're losing weight. They may not be eating. They may have food available, but they may not be eating regularly and normally, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can happen. They're not going to be laying eggs. Obviously, we talked about that. And cool, weaker genetics. Yes, we should talk about that. So you have the animal are going to start adapting to this environment of chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And Angela always liked to talk about the poor, starving North Koreans who are statistically smaller because of the lack of nutrition, that they're just genetically
and
now
stress
smaller,
they're constantly under.
which is horrible. And it would be horrible for a bird to be living under chronic stress because then, especially if you guys are breeding stuff or hatching eggs, you don't want to hatch eggs from a stock of animals that are under those conditions because the next generation is going to start adapting to what their biology is perceiving to be their environment.
Yeah, it will affect their genetic makeup of the following birds.
Yeah, you may see some, maybe there's some discrepancies there. Weakened immunity, we discussed. Chronic weakened immunity is detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're susceptible to all kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's like some people maybe are new to chickens or quail or whatever the animal is, and they're just having just issues, one issue after the other issue, and then we just resolved that issue, now I have the issue again, and usually it's some sort of stressor that hasn't been resolved. Yeah. So, and we already covered a lot of the things to look at.
All right. Other long-term consequences. I'll finish up real quick. Behavioral problems, which discussed, like feather pecking, maybe bullying and stuff. And this is interesting. Vaccine failure. If you're vaccinating a critter with a weakened immune system, well, the weakened immune system is not going to be working with that vaccine that's coming in because the cells are kind of like I said, I ain't doing this. They're relaxing because the energy's going. It's true. I mean, that's what they'd be saying because the energy's going to other parts of the body. The ATP that's going to be allocated for the white cell guys, it's going somewhere else. Gluconeogenesis, creating of new glucose, sugar, energy molecules. So that's going to be suppressing for those guys. All right. So can you measure stress in your birds? As we discussed, it's going to be observational. You can't take a blood test, but I don't see anybody going like, I think my chicken is stressed. I'm taking them to get a blood test. Nobody does that. So we rely on observational acumen. We use our skill as a tenured poultry enthusiast with our backyard flock and our years of experience, or even if you're new, recognizing behavioral changes, food intake abnormalities. Maybe they're not eating as much.
Even something as simple as providing grit. That's an easy thing to just kind of forget. Grit is something that helps them break down their food that they're eating much more efficiently to absorb those nutrients from the ingredients.
It's like chewing versus not chewing.
Yeah, like they're gonna they'll gum some of the stuff out without their grit. But anyway, yeah. So this.
However,
problem solving.
Again, not a zoologist. Wait, what am I not? I'm not a veterinarian. However, it's not veterinary advice, it's entertainment advice. These behavioral or physiological changes may not be stress. It could be an infection or an injury or something like this, okay? So a lot of...
Which is a stress, but there's different types of stresses. So what we're discussing, like how to determine what the type of stress is.
No, I'm saying if my bird has coccidiosis, I may mistake it and say, oh, they've just been stressed because there was predators. I'm saying they may have a disease. I'm just saying disease symptoms, illness symptoms, injury symptoms are similar to the stress symptoms. They present in similar fashion.
Right.
If you have a predator coming around every night, the chickens are going to be behaving in a similar way as if they had an illness.
I guess what I'm saying
And if they have an illness, they're going to be behaving or changing in a similar way as if there was a predator coming around all the time.
I guess what I'm saying was that...
I know all illnesses called stresses. They are, they're stressors.
Yeah.
They cause stress on the body.
But it is important to,
but I'm not talking about an internal pathogen. I'm more about an external thing instigating the stress. They can be confused for an internal.
And an external stress can end up causing illness.
Yes. Well,
because
that's not an illness.
If the
but it'll decrease,
they're picking up,
it'll decrease the immune system. Right.
Sorry, I don't want to confuse everybody.
I hope that didn't confuse everybody. Why who's that? Mo and Curly. The Three Stooges.
Mhm.
She's young. I don't think she watched the Three
No, I
Stooges.
sure did. But
All right.
after it was
I would be
aired.
Curly. You would be Mo because you have the black hair.
Mm.
All right. So can you measure stress in your birds? So you're going to be doing observational assessments. And if you're interacting with the animals, and you're going to notice discrepancies, changes in behaviors if you're interacting with the animals all the time because you're getting to know them. And we always talk about that. That's usually the bottom line. Like with most of this stuff is we did an illness video. We talked about all these different illnesses. And you're going to notice if you interact with them, you're going to notice them. Even subtle differences.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to notice in an animal, like in one of your chickens. You're going to notice a subtle difference. And we're talking to you guys. Like if you talk to the big, huge agriculture business, sick chicken? Next. But that's not us. We take care of each individual bird.
Yeah, and you're going to ask the basic question: are their needs being met? And there's different elements of what that looks like, but it's not overly complex.
That is why observation is so important. Observation doesn't limit to just the animal, but everything around it as well. That's quite true.
Yeah.
And what did Katie say up here? Kelly, can I lovingly call you Sloth? Are you talking about Sloth from Goonies? You never saw Goonies?
Maybe.
We're like a generation apart.
We are.
It's horrible. Like all my favorite 80s movies, she has no clue about. All right. So I think we could conclude this.
Mm-hmm.
So reducing stress is not just about comfort. It's about optimal biology. So we're treating the chicken not just ethically because we like the chicken to be happy, but we want the chicken to function optimally and perform well.
Right.
They're companions, they're pets, they're hobby, they're fun, but they also lay eggs, and they're also living organisms who, if they don't need to suffer, probably shouldn't.
Right.
And they depend on us. They're like, hey, bok, we got foxes coming around, do something over here. So we take care of them. And then they're happy, and they live they're going to live a longer, better life.
Mm-hmm.
Animals expire prematurely if they are in poor health.
Mm-hmm.
I think that does about all of that. So in conclusion, what we're talking about, corticosterone, the chicken hormone of stress, like cortisol in a human, the human's hormone of stress. Chronic stress will unfortunately expire us prematurely. Intermittent stress, especially self-controlled stressors, like when you force yourself to do something and it's stressing you, that's good. You're becoming adaptive, and your body is, you go through stress and you grow and you heal and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody understands that basic principle. And I think is that about doing it?
Yeah, I think so.
I love doing these videos. I like talking about all this interesting stuff and teaching, and hopefully somebody gathered something out of this. Even it's a little piece, like we're exposed to information constantly, and today's information is just a litany of passive nothingness. Mm-hmm. So I like to do like worthwhile information. And great chat, guys. Oh, thanks.
Thanks.
I like to do worthwhile information that is practical and applicable and usable. And all this stuff, guys, like as you're learning, especially if you're new, I like new people because I'm proud of new people. People who do something that they haven't done before, that's a courageous act. Mm-hmm. So I really respect those people to a high degree because nobody's forcing anybody to do anything. So of their own free will, they're like, I'm going to try this new thing that I haven't done before that I don't know anything about. Mm-hmm. Whereas a bunch of miserable people on Facebook, you don't know what you're doing. That's because they're miserable. So you have the courage to do something new and challenge yourself, and it's not easy. So that's, to me, like, I don't know. I have a certain set of ethics and integrity values that I hold, and that kind of thing I really hold in high regard. So that's why I do this. So new people, I hope all this information that you get is useful. You're not going to learn everything at once. It's incremental over time, but over time it
builds.
Yes, it does build. Thanks for the way you guys explain without any looking down at newbies. What's the old saying? If you're looking down at somebody, it should be because you're helping them up. Helping them up. I don't know what it is.
we're all on a journey. Each one of us is on a continual journey, and education and learning, that's part of us people, learning constantly and loving. It's like,
So I got a psych background, and I'm going to tell you right now, and no human being who is happy and who is self-aware will ever do anything intentionally anyway to bring another human being down because they know peace. Okay, people who do this, who say like, oh, you shouldn't do this, or you're not doing this, they may not even know that they're not at peace, but they're not at peace. Because when we're at peace and we're happy, we understand how valuable that is, and so we wish to give it to other people freely. I hope that makes sense. It's not like, oh, aren't I self-righteous? It's just the default position of the human being who is at peace. It's not like, oh, aren't you great? Oh, you doing good things? No. It's, I have no need, right? Like when you're at peace and you're happy, like I don't need something. I want to give something because I already have, if that makes sense. So I like doing it. And life is short, and that's why I act like goofy. And I act goofy all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like living in a nut house here.
They says mistakes are not failure, but opportunity to learn. Absolutely.
That's awesome and optimistic and correct. I love that saying, looking down only because you're helping them up. Well, that's how we should be.
Yeah.
Everybody, I'm going to hang up in a minute, but I'm going to tell you, man, I was ranting about this. It seems like all the people who complain about how horrible the world is don't do anything to make it any less horrible. They just complain about it. It's like, okay, great. What are you doing? You don't have to do anything magnificent. Hold the door open for a little old lady. Walk somebody's groceries to the car. Smile.
Yeah, smile. Say, hey, how are you? Or you look, or saying compliments. People like say, you look really good today, or it's just a complete stranger. Like, I love what you're wearing, or, and it just brightens somebody up because they're not expecting it. And it's something positive and it builds them up. Even if it's, in passing and they continue, you're not seeing them smiling as they're walking to their car. It's just something so simple. And that's usually like we keep our thoughts to ourselves. But when it's a positive thing you're thinking, just say it. Even if it's a complete stranger, it really does encourage people.
Unless you're in a dark alley in the middle of the night.
Oh, for goodness sakes. I'm thinking like cash register.
we live in the Bible Belt of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, down south with all the Amish people. So it's a very small town. I go down to the local grocery store with 5 people, and I'm in the city. A simple compliment costs you nothing and can make someone's day.
Yeah.
That's true, Katie. You don't know how true that is. We don't realize when we intervene in somebody's day that they are in crisis. People are in crisis. And when you say a kind thing to somebody in crisis, it may pull them from the brink of doing something rather irreversible, if you know what I'm saying, because people are like this, There's a lot of people in bad places. So never ever be cruel, mean, be graceful, be forgiving, be kind to other humans. People will treat you like crap. They will take advantage of you. They will curse you. They'll do all kinds of horrible things, but that doesn't mean you do the same thing. There's again, because if you know yourself and you're confident and you understand your value, and I always talk about you guys, people, you human beings, you have inherent infinite value. Nobody can take it away from you. Nobody gives it to you. You were born with it. So when somebody wants to say something terse or undesirable, doesn't make any difference. You're not taking anything away from me. You're expressing your lack of peace. If I may be so bold. All right. So true. Y'all made such a difference, as did many in this community during family crisis. Aw, thanks, hon. Kindness blesses and lifts all those around it. This is a true thing. All right, guys. I don't want to be preaching here. Now I'm going to go yell and scream and be mean.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. We are going to go.
Yeah, everybody have a wonderful night who's here now as we're live. Later, if anybody's on here and you're new to our channel, feel free to subscribe. And we try to do educational material and encouraging stuff regularly. So like the video if it was helpful.
Oh, and if this was useful, share the video. Or if there's a video we have that you found useful, share it. Because I would like to get feedback. Because we're a small channel. And if people are saying, oh, you're doing this wrong, I like negative feedback. I'm one of those people because I like to make things better. So I hate being complimented. I mean, generally speaking, I'd rather hear the negative, like, in appropriate way.
Constructive way.
This doesn't work because blank. This is not working because blank. I prefer that because then you can make something better. All right, guys, it's been beautiful. I'll see you. Another comment?
Oh, no.
So,
oh, yeah.
You too. Thanks. Have a great week. Have a blessed night. I already shared it out. Oh, thanks, Verna.
Oh, thanks.
You guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.